It's dawn. Time to wake up. I'd had a bit too much to drink last night after a long time, so I'd asked Nanum to wake me. I wasn't hungover, though. It's incredibly convenient to have Nanum break down the alcohol for me when I ask. Clelia and I stayed in the guest building. Apparently, they have a dedicated building for travelers seeking a night's lodging, as it happens quite often. It was really fortunate that we managed to get along well with the villagers yesterday. It probably helped a lot that we exterminated the big boar that was troubling them. I had even considered the worst-case scenario where Clelia's pursuers might be in this village, and we'd have to fight, but it seems my worries were unfounded. In fact, considering Zach's reaction, her pursuers probably haven't even arrived here yet. That's good news. Clelia was still asleep, so I decided to let her sleep. She must be tired. I left the building and headed towards the plaza. Several villagers were already up and working. "Good morning, Alan." It was Beck, Zach's son. "Good morning, Beck." Beck and I had gotten quite friendly drinking together yesterday. He's 19, slender, but as well built as Zach. With his brown hair and blue eyes, he gives off the impression of a fine young man. Beck seems to admire swordsmen. He had initially approached Clelia hesitantly, but then Clelia told him I was even stronger, so he came to me instead and grilled me relentlessly about swordsmanship. I don't know anything about swordsmanship, so I tried to evade his questions, but somehow I ended up agreeing to teach him during our free time on the journey. Well, it's fine during breaks. I'll mostly leave it to Clelia. "You're up early, Beck." "We want to leave as early as possible. We'd already packed most of the luggage, but we're still gathering the clothes for sale." "When do you think we can depart?" "Well, we'd like to leave before noon at the latest." "Oh, my dad said he wanted to see you." "Got it. I'll go look for him." Just then, Clelia came running over for some reason. "Morning, Leah." "Alan, you should have woken me up." Is she mad? I don't recall doing anything to anger her. "Zach seems to be looking for me, so I'm going to see him." "I'm coming too." She's definitely in a bad mood. Zach's house, he said, was the biggest building in the village, as expected of the village chief. As I approached, Zach happened to come out of his house. "Good morning, Zach. I heard you were looking for me." "Oh, yeah, it's about the clothes for your reward. Come over here for a bit." I was led into Zach's house. A room near the entrance looked like a storeroom, with many clothes neatly arranged on shelves. "These are the clothes for sale, and we're currently gathering them. We've mostly finished gathering clothes that would fit you, Alan. You can choose a full set from these." I'll gratefully accept. There's quite a lot, though. Now, which to choose? "I'll choose for you." Clelia's voice was joyful, as if her bad mood from earlier was a lie. "Well, take your time choosing." Zach then left. "All right, Leah, I'll leave it to you." I've never worn clothes with these kinds of designs, so I have no idea if they're good or bad. "Leah, that's fine." Clelia happily pulled clothes from the shelves and held them up to me. Honestly, I couldn't tell the difference. Wouldn't it be fine as long as the size fits? Since there weren't many options that fit, we decided pretty quickly. It was a cream-colored shirt and black trousers. "When we go to town, I'll pick out something proper for you." "Thanks, Leah. You saved me. I'll count on you again." Clelia seemed dissatisfied with the limited choices, but when I said I'd count on her again, she brightened right up. Just then, Zach returned. "Zach, I'll take these." "All right. You'll need underwear too, right? Unfortunately, we only have one type of underwear here." "It seems there's only one type of free-size underwear, but that's a huge help." "Can I try them on?" "They're yours now. Do as you please." As I started taking off my overalls, Clelia rushed out in a panic. They're a bit stiff, but not as bothersome as I thought. The size is perfect, too. After I finished changing and stepped out of Zach's house, Clelia ran up to me. She seemed to be inspecting me. I guess I passed her inspection. "Also, you mentioned wanting preserved food. How about it? I intend to provide enough food for 4 people, just in case." "Then that'll be enough. I plan to hunt along the way anyway. Is there anything I can help with?" "Then help us pack the luggage." We then returned to the storeroom and, along with Clelia, helped wrap the clothes by type using large sheet-like fabrics. It was difficult to make them as compact as possible. We managed to finish wrapping them in about 2 or 3 hours. "All right, let's have breakfast," Zach declared, and it was time for breakfast. As expected, breakfast was big boar dishes, but however, the seasoning was different from the feast, and it was delicious. We loaded the luggage onto a 2-horse carriage. Besides the clothes, there was a large amount of other luggage. When I asked what it was, he said it was cotton. Apparently, cotton was the village's specialty. This was also compressed tightly and loaded. Since it was an open-top carriage, I asked what they would do if it rained, and they said they'd deal with it then. Indeed, there's nothing you can do about what you don't have. The young villager accompanying us was a young man named Thor, the same age as Beck and his childhood friend. He was also quite a fine young man. He was apparently going to take turns driving the carriage with Beck. With the luggage piled high on the carriage, we set off. Quite a few people were there to see us off. "Later, Beck. Don't mess up." "I know, Dad." "Alan, please look after Beck and the others." "Leave it to me. I'll deliver them to Catania without fail." We left the village, but since it was quite a downhill slope to the main road, everyone walked slowly, braking as they went. Once we reached the main road, we truly set off. According to what I heard yesterday, it takes about 20 days by carriage to Catania. That's surprisingly fast. Beck and Thor were on the driver's seat, and Clelia and I were, surprisingly, sitting on top of the mountain of luggage. Apparently, this was fine. We moved at an incomparable speed compared to walking. Since I was moving while detecting, there wasn't anything particular to do. My detection range was still a radius of 700 meters. "Beck, where are we planning to go today?" "Since we left late today, we'll be camping out. There's a good spot for camping, so we'll go there." "Understood. If anything happens, don't hesitate to tell me." The carriage was rattling loudly, so I had to shout for my voice to reach the driver's seat. Beck and Thor were talking about something, but I couldn't hear them from here. Since I was free, I decided to talk to Clelia to pass the time. It was basically the same as before we stopped at the village. Clelia asked me to teach her the trick to single-shot flame arrow, but I don't have any tricks. It's all about imagination. So I told her that imagination is the most important thing. In fact, it's the only thing you need. Clelia fell into thought. I was bored. "Oh, we have visitors. Nanom detected magic." "Leah, it's a greyhound. One of them, 500 meters, that way." The direction was 11 o'clock. Not a good direction. "Please, let me do it." "Well, since she asked, I guess I have no choice. I'll let her." "But we don't know if it'll come this way yet." Judging by its movements, the greyhound hadn't noticed us yet, but since the carriage was getting closer, it might notice us eventually. The greyhound's movements clearly changed when the distance to the carriage dropped below 200 meters. It started approaching us. I guess that's what happens when we're making such a racket. "Beck, stop the carriage." The carriage stopped, and Clelia and I got down. "What is it?" Beck exclaimed. "A greyhound, one of them. Leah will take care of it." I told them just in case. Clelia drew her sword and held both arms in front of her chest, still holding the sword. The greyhound appeared about 50 meters ahead of the carriage. Without any signs of caution, it ran straight towards us. I also held my rifle at the hip. "Flame arrow." A single arrow of flame appeared in front of Clelia and flew towards the greyhound. About 10 meters from Clelia, the arrow pierced the greyhound's chest. Whoa, that was fast. The magic activated in about 15 seconds from her stance. I remember it took about 30 seconds when Clelia used flame arrow before, so that's a significant reduction in time. And Clelia used the magic with her eyes open. This is a big step forward. Beck and Thor were making a huge fuss, exclaiming how amazing it was. Usually, Clelia would jump up and cheer, but today she had a composed look on her face. She probably wanted to act as if it was natural in front of Beck and Thor, but she couldn't hide her wide grin. Well, considering she's advertised as a master knight, I can understand how she feels. I shouldn't forget to collect the magic stone. I made my sword glow, cut the greyhound in half, and extracted the magic stone. This also caused Beck and Thor to make a big fuss. I rolled the greyhound down the valley side of the mountain. "All right, shall we depart?" "You're amazing, Alan. Is Leah always like this?" "I'll let Clelia take the credit today." "Yeah, pretty much. Let's go." "Yes, sir," they both replied. Even after the carriage started moving, the two in front were still excited and talking animatedly about something. "How was it, Alan?" Clelia asked, unable to suppress her joy any longer. "It was good. The time you spent imagining was shorter. Most importantly, it was good that you could use magic with your eyes open." "Huh? My eyes were open?" She didn't seem to realize it. "Yeah, they were definitely open. The next challenges are to shorten the activation time even further, to 10 seconds at most, and to be able to cast without holding your hands in a stance and without vocalizing. If you can do that, you'll be able to reliably take down at least one opponent if you have even a little preparation time before combat starts. That'll be a huge advantage." Clelia listened, looking as if she understood. Conversely, I'm curious as to why she couldn't do it until now. "Leah, how did you learn magic?" "Normally, to learn magic, you have to read a grimoire. Magic won't activate unless you precisely follow each step in the grimoire one after another." "A grimoire? That sounds amazing." "For example, Fireball has 17 steps and Flame Arrow has 50. So, you're saying that when you cast Fireball, you're going through 17 steps in your head in those 10 seconds? "Exactly." She sounded a bit proud. "That's incredible. Wouldn't you say that's genius level?" No wonder she'd want to close her eyes. "I don't know what kind of steps they are, but it calculates to nearly 2 steps per second. I've never heard of anyone using magic with just imagination like you, Alan." It's true that the process or imagination of needing magic essence to the point where it can be released as magic might be difficult to learn without someone teaching you. I also remember being taught by an NPC mage in a game for several days. I see, so it's a process for creating the same image. Is it common knowledge that you need a grimoire to use magic? Of course. I can definitely say that everyone who can use magic learned it by reading a grimoire, except Alan. She couldn't definitively say it after all. I see. I think it's possible that the person who first learned to use magic with just imagination created grimoires so that others could also use it. And then, at some point, it became common knowledge that you couldn't use magic without learning from a grimoire. That's quite plausible. Wait, but Zach said there were 2 or 3 people in his village who could use magic, right? Did they also read grimoire? Speaking of which, Zach said there were 2 or 3 people in his village who could use magic, right? Ah, those are probably people who learned the contents of a grimoire from someone who could use magic and were able to use magic, albeit imperfectly. Grimoires are very expensive, so very few commoners can use magic. I see. Indeed, if the content can be accurately conveyed, one can learn magic without a grimoire. However, it means that a grimoire is necessary to convey the precise imagery. Well, I think you understand now, Leah, but all magic requires imagery. The power to imagine faster, more vividly, and how much magic power to put into it. That's image power. Image power. Clelia fell into bot again. "Since I was bored, I lay down on the luggage. The weather was nice. I hope it doesn't rain. Oh, I almost fell asleep. Looking at my watch, I had been lying down for about an hour. Nanom handles the vigilance, so even if I fell asleep, it would wake me up, but it would be a failure as a guard. I need to be careful." Clelia was sitting with her eyes closed. She seemed to be meditating. She wasn't sleeping, was she? Just then, there was a reaction on my detection. It was a faint reaction, barely within detection range, and again in the direction the carriage was heading, 400 meters away. It didn't seem dangerous. At 100 meters, I zoomed in for a look. A rabbit. I could see its round white tail. It was hiding in the bushes right next to the road, but its tail was completely visible from this angle. Rabbits seem to have a tendency to hide from danger and wait it out. There were a few times before I had detection magic when they suddenly jumped out from under my feet, startling me. If it doesn't run away, maybe I'll hunt it for dinner tonight.
"Leah, there's a rabbit." Clelia's eyes snapped open, so she wasn't sleeping after all. "Where? I'll do it." I knew she'd say that. "It's hiding in those bushes over there. I can't see it. You might not be able to see it from here. How about I throw a stone and you try to get it when it jumps out?" I took out a stone I always kept in my gathering bag. "I'll try." She raised her arm and took a stance. The rabbit still wasn't running away. It seemed to be planning to wait it out. I'll make my move when we get closest. 30 meters, 20 meters, 10 meters. There! I threw a stone right next to where the rabbit was hiding. The rabbit frantically jumped out. Flame arrow! Did she miss the timing a bit? The flame arrow flew, but it looked like it would narrowly miss. But then, the flame arrow changed its trajectory just before the rabbit and pierced its neck. Amazing! The flame arrow Clelia fired wasn't just a flame arrow. It seemed to have a homing function. I can't believe Clelia did that. No, that's rude of me. She must have been thinking about it during her meditation earlier. That's incredible. I didn't think of that. I guess I was also unconsciously bound by common sense. I need to learn from her. Beck was startled by Clelia's sudden use of magic and stopped the carriage. Clelia and I got out of the carriage to retrieve the rabbit. It was a plump, large rabbit. Rabbit meat has quite a strong flavor, so I should bleed it immediately. Beck and Thor were making a huge fuss again, exclaiming how amazing it was. Clelia was acting as if it was a matter of course again, but her lips were twitching as she tried to suppress her grin. Anyway, we got meat for dinner. The carriage continued without incident until late afternoon, when Beck stopped it at what seemed to be tonight's lodging spot. It was a plaza-like area right next to the highway. Water was gushing from a rock face, forming a small spring. It would be a good lodging spot for travelers who can't produce water with magic. Let's stay here tonight. There's no better spot further ahead, Beck said. Understood. I'll go gather firewood. Leah, I'm counting on you for guard duty. Got it. Since we were surrounded by mountains, gathering firewood was easy. I decided to gather extra. I finished in less than 10 minutes. Beck, what kind of food do you have? I wanted to get a grasp of our provisions. All the food is in this bag. He handed me a pretty large bag. It was full of stuff. Dried meat, lots of bread, plenty of poto, salad vegetables, was it sapa, leafy greens, a bag of salt, and seasoning-like items such as a bag of dried herbs. Quantity-wise, there seemed to be no problem at all. However, I should try to avoid using items that preserve well as much as possible. Are you going to cook, Alan? Thor approached and asked. Beck was unloading the luggage. Yeah, I quite enjoy cooking. If it's no problem, I'll do it. Then I'll help too. Shall I butcher the rabbit? People say I'm quite good at it. That would be a great help. Please do. For the menu, I decided on rabbit meat, poto, stir-fried leafy greens, and a hearty rabbit meat sandwich. I wanted to enjoy the bread before it got stale. I'll use up all the rabbit meat. If there's any left over, it can be breakfast tomorrow. I'll go wash the vegetables. Thor had already started butchering the rabbit. He was skilled, just as he said he was. How should I cut the meat? Roughly bite-sized and thinly sliced, please. Let's eat it all today. If there's any left, it'll be for breakfast tomorrow. Rabbit meat is basically lean meat. There's not much point in separating the parts. Amazing! Another feast today. To be able to eat so much meat. I helped cut the meat too. It was a big rabbit, so there was quite a lot of it. Well, with Clelia here, it'll be fine. I put the meat in a large pot and seasoned it. The seasoning was plenty of garlic, herbs, salt, and pepper. Since the meat had a strong flavor, I made the seasoning robust to cover the gamey taste. Alan, where should I put the rabbit fur? You can just throw the fur away, can't you? What? That's such a waste. This beautiful rabbit fur can be sold. It might not be much, but still. I don't need it. I don't know how to process it anyway. Then I'll give it to you, Thor. Yes, thank you. I was planning for an early dinner today, but Beck suddenly asked for sword practice. Thor was with him, of course. Leah, could you teach them the basics, please? The two of them cheered. It seems Leah's reputation has skyrocketed due to her performance today. Leah didn't seem entirely displeased and coolly said, "Understood." They seemed to have prepared wooden swords as well. Leah started by teaching them how to grip the sword. Sword practice continued for about an hour and a half. I felt like their sword swings had improved somewhat compared to when they started. It was getting a bit dark, so perhaps it was time for dinner. The meat might have marinated nicely. We built a fire in the hearth that was originally in this plaza, and when Leah used magic to light it, the two of them cheered again. First, I stir-fried the poto in a large frying pan that Beck brought. Once they were somewhat cooked, I added a large amount of meat. Let's go all out. When the meat started to cook through, I added the leafy greens. I still wanted to preserve the texture of the vegetables. A quick stir-fry and it was done. I loaded a huge amount of food onto a large wooden platter that Beck also brought. It piled up high on the platter. This was more than I expected. Well, dig in. Everyone eagerly piled food onto their wooden plates. I continued to heat the bread, cut in half for each person, in the frying pan. All three of them were stuffing their faces with the stir-fried meat, watching me. It was amusing to see them all doing it. Once the bread was slightly browned, I quickly removed it. It had absorbed the oil from the pan and looked delicious. I placed sapa leaves on the toasted bread, piled on a generous amount of stir-fried meat, added more sapa leaves, and sandwiched it with another slice of bread, completing the hearty sandwich. I placed a sandwich on each of their plates. Oh, while I'm at it, I should boil some water in the pot. All right, time for me to eat. First, the stir-fried meat. Delicious. Rabbit meat is lean, so after continuous meals of big boar, it feels light and very tasty. The generous amount of garlic, herbs, and pepper completely masked the gamey smell of the meat. Perhaps it was good that I marinated it for a little longer. Next, the hearty sandwich. The lightly toasted bread was fluffy and crispy on the outside, having absorbed the oil from the pan. The crunchiness of the sapa leaves and the richly seasoned stir-fried meat, everything came together to create an exquisite dish. This is delicious, a dish I can confidently call delicious. Everyone was eating devotedly. They seemed to like it. Even Clelia couldn't finish such a large amount of food. Quite a bit of the stir-fried meat was left. I'll save it for breakfast tomorrow. I made some green tea after the meal using the tea leaves Zach had given us. Phew, Alan, that was incredibly delicious. You used a lot of salt and pepper, didn't you? This is the first time I've had such luxurious food. I see, so salt and pepper are indeed valuable commodities. Come to think of it, the village's cooking didn't use pepper, and the saltiness was subtle. I'm glad you liked it. No, liked it is an understatement. Why don't you open a restaurant when we get to town? I'd be a regular. Cooking is just a hobby for me. I don't intend to make it a profession. But will you cook during the journey? I don't mind at all. In fact, please let me. Yes. He and Thor cheered. It was already night. We should probably go to bed since we have an early start tomorrow. All right, let's get some rest. Leah and I will take turns on watch, so get some good sleep. But it's fine. You two are the drivers, and we're the guards, so let us do our jobs. Understood. Thank you. I had already told Clelia that she would automatically wake up if I detected anything with my magic, so she went to sleep without hesitation. And so, the first day of guard duty passed without any problems.